Welcome to Audit Archive, where we run you through some of the most questionable and rather atrocious police encounters. Today, we're looking at several cases of police misconduct, including an incident where an officer body slammed an elderly woman to the ground, causing her to lose consciousness and suffer injuries, simply for questioning why she couldn't remain in a public area. On June 28, 2024, officers Patrick Husney, Bryce Patterson, and Andrew Citrini initiated a pedestrian stop on two teenagers who were traveling together, one riding a bicycle on the road and the other, Nyah Mway, walking beside him. The interaction, which escalated shortly after the stop, was fully captured on the body cameras worn by the responding officers. At the outset of the interaction, an officer can be heard asking Mr. Mway for consent to pat him down, stating that he wants to check if he has any weapons on him. Law enforcement officers are allowed to stop and question individuals if they have reasonable suspicion that the person has committed. In this case, if the officers lack sufficient grounds for reasonable suspicion, their actions could be in violation of state law, since there was no probable cause to justify a search. The officer appears to have attempted to circumvent the law by asking for consent, while simultaneously moving in to conduct the search before consent was even fully given. This approach raises serious legal concerns, as a search conducted without proper grounds or valid consent could be seen as an unlawful intrusion under New York law. At this point, Mr. Mway attempts to flee, prompting a pursuit by Officer Husney and the other officers involved. As they chase him, the officers notice Mr. Mway seemingly reaching for something in his pocket. In response, several officers begin shouting, "Stop reaching!" Simultaneously, Officer Husney draws his service weapon and points it in the direction of Mr. Mway, while continuing to pursue him. Tennessee v. Garner limits the use of deadly force by law enforcement officers. Officer Husney's decision to draw his firearm while pursuing Mr. Mway could be legally justified only if there was a reasonable belief that Mr. Mway posed such a threat. If he was merely fleeing and not presenting an actual or imminent threat, the use of deadly force, or the threat thereof, could violate this legal standard. Furthermore, if Officer Husney's actions in drawing and pointing his firearm while in pursuit are deemed reckless, he could potentially face charges under New York penal law, Section 120.20, if it is determined that the officer's actions unnecessarily escalated the situation and put Mr. Mway or bystanders at risk. This law could come into play.
Drop it! Drop it! Start us in the ambulance. We got shots fired. Start us in the ambulance. Got shots fired.
At this point, another officer tackled Mr. Mway to the ground and restrained him. While the officer was on top of Mr. Mway, Officer Husney intervened by jumping in and placing his service weapon directly against Mr. Mway's body before firing a shot. This caused the officers to fall back, and nearby residents began to emerge from their homes. A woman, upon witnessing the scene, screamed and cried, realizing that a child had been shot. That too, based on what was perceived to be a potential threat. Since the shooting resulted in Mr. Mway's death, Officer Husney can potentially face charges under New York penal law Section 125.25 for second-degree murder. This statute applies when a person causes the death of another with intent to do so, or when the person acts with reckless disregard for human life. If it is determined that Officer Husney acted recklessly by using deadly force without sufficient justification, he could be criminally liable for the death, even if his intent was not explicitly to kill.
I don't know where the gun went. Get away. Dude. You need to get a chest seal on that. You need to get a chest seal on it. Gloves. Here. Here. Give me a light. Go on. Oh no. It's a 22. I think it's a 22.
Are we all good?
Yep, we're good.
I don't know if he shot me.
Check him. Buddy check him. Buddy check him. Get a chest seal on him. Assist him.
Is there any more shots?
There's just one shot. It was me. There was one shot. It was me. Come on, dude. Start compressions. We need to start compressions.
At this point, the officers have recovered the gun that Mr. Mway was carrying. Officer Husney initially believed it to be a .22 caliber firearm, but it will later be revealed that it was actually a legal pellet gun. It is possible that Mr. Mway, fearing the consequences, panicked and fled, perhaps unaware of the legal status of the toy gun he was carrying. After the shooting, the officers began performing chest compressions on Mr. Mway, who remains unresponsive after being shot. Under New York Penal Law Section 265.05, it is illegal for individuals under the age of 16 to possess any firearm, airgun, or other weapons listed under the statute. However, pellet guns are generally not considered firearms under New York law, especially if they are a type that is legally sold to minors. Given that Mr. Mway was carrying a legal pellet gun, his possession of the item would not constitute a violation of this law, though his fear and decision to flee may have stemmed from confusion about the legal status of the toy.
Yeah. I think it's a 22. I'm gonna go over here. I don't have a mag. I don't know. He was aiming it at us. I don't fucking know.
I got it.
What's he got?
Shot! Because you're going to jail! You're going to jail! 914 shot. 914 shot.
What do we got? What do we got? Tell me what we got.
We got one gunshot wound, no life.
Block this street off. Sean suspect. Block it off.
Who's got the gun?
I do.
You got the gun? Secure it in one of the cars. I am.
You alright?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good.
You did him. You good?
Yep.
They've been alerted. They're en route.
You want to go back down?
I'm still on. I'm still on.
Lincoln. Where is it? Can't one of my feet. I'll make the red and put it higher than this.
No, I'm with him.
Can't one on seeing after that.
Mr. Mway was transported to a local hospital soon afterwards, where he was declared deceased. The three officers are on paid leave: Bryce Patterson, Patrick Husney, and Andrew Citrini. The State Attorney General's office, as required by law, is investigating. The Utica Police Department is conducting a joint parallel internal investigation with its Professional Standards Unit to determine if policies, procedures, and training were followed. Although the officers went too far in this incident, the next one we're discussing now is not as bad but still one of the worst. As on June 23, 2024, Miss Carolyn Rodriguez, a self-proclaimed First Amendment auditor and cop watcher, was driving late at night when she encountered a group of police cruisers and officers gathered in a parking lot. She decided to follow and record their activities. According to the Fort Worth Police Department, the officers were conducting an investigation into a hit-and-run incident where the suspect had fled the scene. Rodriguez claims that there was no police tape marking off the area, nor were there any lights indicating an active investigation. This amendment is a fundamental right of all U.S. citizens, and as such gives them the liberty and freedom to record police activities without interference, so long as they are not hindering an investigation. The incident was captured from multiple angles, including footage from Ms. Rodriguez's camera, CCTV footage, and the body cam of one of the officers on the scene.
Please register upon parking. Who do they register with? Okay, here it says, here's a sign. Does anybody know how to do these? This is what the sign says. I got to scratch so we can focus in. Here's what the signs say. The signs say, validated parking. Please register upon parking. Businesses can then validate parking for Folk Street warehouses. Ways to validate.
The footage begins after the officers have asked Mr. Carolyn Rodriguez to validate her parking in order to avoid arrest. She is seen complying with their request. What raises concerns is that the officers are on private property, a ticketed parking lot, and are threatening her with arrest, despite not having clear legal grounds for such action. Typically, if Ms. Rodriguez had not paid for parking, the lot management would contact the police and a private towing company might be called to remove her vehicle. However, no such steps had been taken, making the officers' threats appear unwarranted and possibly intended to intimidate her into compliance without proper legal justification. Under Texas Penal Code Section 30.05, criminal trespass occurs when an individual enters or remains on private property without the owner's consent. Without such a request, threatening her with arrest for trespassing is legally dubious.
You can scan the QR code or text pay. Failure to pay or extend time may result in boots. Okay, so how do they know if they paid or not? That's what I want to know. How do they know if they paid or not? How do you know if they paid or not? How do you guys know if they paid or not? Oh, they're going to ignore me too. Help! Rape! Fire! 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 Fire!
What is crucial to note in this situation is the attitude of the police. After Ms. Rodriguez, who is an elderly woman, struggles to understand how to pay the parking ticket online, she repeatedly asked the officers for assistance. However, the officers begin to ignore her and refuse to respond to her questions. Out of frustration, Ms. Rodriguez sarcastically starts shouting, "Fire! Fire!" in an attempt to get their attention, but the officers continue to disregard her.
That's great community relations too. How do you know if they paid or not, ladies? Hey ladies, hey ladies, hey ladies, hey Kruger. No, I'm not going to the floor. There's no investigation.
Caroline, we're busy. Go to the other side of the street. You can go.
There's no investigation, there's no nothing.
You can go to the other side of the street or you're going to get arrested. I'm not warning you again.
What are you talking about?
Go to the other side of the street right now.
Wait, tell me why first.
You're under arrest. Turn around. Stop resisting. Stop resisting.
She's bleeding.
What's critical to understand here is the sequence of events leading to the escalation. While Ms. Rodriguez was following two female officers who were ignoring her questions, they approached a police cruiser from which a male officer emerged. He instructed Ms. Rodriguez to move to the other side of the street. When Ms. Rodriguez protested, pointing out that there were neither police lights nor tape designating the area as restricted, and questioned why she couldn't remain where she was, the officer informed her that she was under arrest. He then grabbed her from behind and body slammed her onto the concrete, at which point she immediately lost consciousness and began to bleed. Despite Ms. Rodriguez being unconscious, the officer continued to handcuff her while shouting, "Stop resisting," a tragic and frustrating turn of events, revealing the officer's apparent reflexive reliance on the phrase, regardless of whether the individual was resisting or not. Another officer on the scene can be heard gasping and saying, "She's bleeding." In Graham v. Connor, the U.S. Supreme Court held that claims of excessive force must be analyzed under the Fourth Amendment's objective reasonableness standard. In this case, the officer's use of force, slamming an elderly woman to the ground and handcuffing her while she was unconscious, could be viewed as unreasonable, especially given the non-threatening nature of the situation. Under Texas Penal Code Section 22.01, a person commits assault if they intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly cause bodily injury to another. The officer's actions, body slamming Ms. Rodriguez, an elderly and unarmed woman, causing her to lose consciousness and bleed, could potentially be classified as assault under Texas law. The excessive use of force resulting in injury may expose the officer to criminal liability. And lastly, 42 U.S.C. Section 1983 allows individuals to file civil lawsuit against government officials. The continued use of force and handcuffing while she was unconscious may strengthen the claim of excessive force and misconduct. Let's now view all angles of the incident together.
How do they know if they paid or not? How do you know if they paid or not? How do you guys know if they paid or not? Oh, they're gonna ignore me too. Help! Rape! Fire! 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 That's great community relations too. How do you know if they paid or not, ladies? Hey ladies! Hey ladies! Hey ladies! Hey
Caroline,
Kruger!
we're busy. Go to the other side of the street.
No, I'm not going to
There's
no
investigation. There's no nothing. You can go to the other side of the street. You're going to get arrested. I'm not warning you.
What are you talking about?
Go to the other side of the street right now.
Wait, tell me why first.
You're under arrest. All right.
No. Okay.
Stop resisting. Stop resisting.
She's bleeding. She's bleeding.
Ms. Rodriguez was transported to a hospital where, upon regaining consciousness, she was informed that she had been knocked out and that her elbow had been dislocated, in addition to suffering other injuries, including bruises along her arms and a black eye. Ms. Rodriguez had stated that she plans to file a civil lawsuit against the Fort Worth Police Department. Unfortunately, the victims of such incidents don't always have the opportunity to file lawsuits themselves, as was the case with an incident that occurred on May 18, 2022, when McKinley County Sheriff's deputies were dispatched to a rest stop after reports of a 39-year-old Robert Carroll behaving in a disoriented manner. Mr. Carroll, who was on a road trip from Kansas City to Phoenix to visit friends, appeared confused. Footage from the deputy's body cam shows Mr. Carroll walking onto I-40, with the deputy ordering him to get down on the ground. When Mr. Carroll fails to comply, the situation quickly escalates.
Come back over here. Come back over here. Come back over here. Get up. Lay down. Roll over on your stomach. I'm gonna tase you. I'm gonna tase you, man. Get out of the damn road. Get out of the. Get out. Put your hands behind your back. Now. 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 Roll over on your stomach. Roll over on your stomach. Roll over, dude. Roll over. Roll over. Put your hand behind your back. Now. Roll over, I said. Roll over. I won't tase you.
The footage clearly shows that Mr. Carroll is highly disoriented and does not seem to fully comprehend what is happening. He does not speak a word throughout the encounter and repeatedly collapses after taking just a few steps, despite his apparent attempts to flee. Since Mr. Carroll had committed no crime and the 911 call was made for a wellness check, the situation warranted a calm and de-escalating approach from the responding officers. Instead, the deputy is seen yelling at Mr. Carroll, commanding him to get onto the ground and then roll over onto his stomach, instructions that are overly complex for someone in such a state of mental distress. To make matters worse, the deputy issues these commands while pointing a taser at Mr. Carroll, repeatedly threatening to use it on him. According to NMSA 1978, Section 24-10B-4, law enforcement officers are trained to use calming strategies and should avoid aggressive tactics when interacting with individuals suffering from apparent mental distress. The deputy's escalating behavior and aggressive commands, especially while pointing a taser at Mr. Carroll, appear to run counter to these crisis intervention standards, potentially violating New Mexico's procedural requirements for handling such situations.
204, Metro, 204. I'm gonna tase you. Roll over and put your hands behind your back. Roll over, put your hands behind your back. Roll over and put your hands behind your back. You hear me? Roll over! Roll over! Now! Roll over! Put your hands behind your back! Roll over! Roll over! You get up on that freaking tase you, dude! You hear me? Roll over! Put your hands behind your back! Now! Now, dude! Now! Do it! Do it! Put your hand behind your back! Put your hand behind your back! Put your hand behind your back! Now! Now! Put your hand behind your back! You hear me? Put your hand... Put your hand behind your back! Put your hand behind your back! Put your hand behind your back! You hear me? Roll over! Put your hand behind your back! I'm gonna give it to you again! Roll over! I'm in the median!
At this point, the officer has deployed his taser multiple times on Mr. Carroll, who was unarmed and non-hostile. Throughout the encounter, Mr. Carroll repeatedly asked why and questioned why he was being arrested. Without receiving a clear answer from the officer, it was later revealed that the deputy had consumed alcohol within 8 hours of the incident, which is a violation of departmental policy. The Fourth Amendment protects individuals from unreasonable seizures, including the use of excessive force during an arrest. Tasing an unarmed and non-hostile individual, like Mr. Carroll, who was merely asking why he was being detained, could be considered excessive force under constitutional standards. Furthermore, the New Mexico Tort Claims Act allows for lawsuits against public employees, including law enforcement officers, for excessive force. The officer's repeated use of a taser on Mr. Carroll, who was not resisting or posing a threat, could expose the officer and the department to civil liability under this statute. NMSA 1978, Section 41-4-12.
East of the port entry, I tased him. I still can't get him under control. Put your hand behind your back. Put your hand behind your back. Put your hand behind your back. You hear me? Put your... Stay down, dude. Stay down. All you gotta do is put your hand behind your back. Put your hand behind your back. Come on. Put your hand behind your back. Now. Stay down, dude. Stay down. Put your hand behind your back. Put your hand behind your back. Put it. Put it, dude. Put your hand behind your back. Put your hand behind your back. In the median, east of the port of entry. Roll over, dude. Put your hand behind your back.
Mr. Carroll has remained on the ground, unarmed and non-hostile throughout the encounter, shifting slowly and rolling in visible distress after being repeatedly tasered. Despite this, the deputy has continued to use the taser rather than waiting for backup to assist with the situation. It is clear from the footage that Mr. Carroll is experiencing a traumatic and confusing moment, and the use of force appears unnecessary. At the end of the footage, backup officers finally arrive on the scene. Their arrival presents an opportunity to de-escalate the situation and safely place Mr. Carroll in handcuffs without further harm. However, it remains to be seen how the officers will proceed now that additional support has arrived. The continuation of excessive force or failure to adapt to the situation could exacerbate Mr. Carroll's distress and raise additional legal concerns.
Roll over.
Roll over. Get on your stomach. Roll over on your stomach. Roll over on your stomach. Put your hand behind your back. Put your hand behind your back. Put your hand behind your back. Roll over on your stomach. Roll over. Roll over. Roll over. Roll over here. I got this one, huh?
Thank you. Broke my cuff. Hang on. All right. I got it.
Don't move. Run it down, let go. Don't move. Don't move your arm. Just keep your arm right where it is. Help him on that side. Help him on that side. Quit resisting. Hang on. Go ahead. Let's get it. Right here. How's the hands go? This side. Confirm? Yeah. All right. Got it. 44. So we have 1 to 10. Feel that.
After a total of 18 taser deployments, and with the assistance of 3 additional backup officers, the deputy was finally able to successfully handcuff Mr. Carroll. However, the troubling issue is that the deputy chose to tase Mr. Carroll 4 more times, even while Mr. Carroll was already being restrained by another deputy who had one of Mr. Carroll's arms handcuffed. This behavior demonstrates a complete disregard for Mr. Carroll's well-being and constitutes a clear case of excessive force. The continuous use of the taser, despite Mr. Carroll being partially restrained, reflects an egregious and unjustified escalation of force. Additionally, the fact that all 4 deputies on the scene were white and none of them intervened to stop the initial deputy from further tasering Mr. Carroll raises serious concerns about potential racial profiling. The repeated tasering may suggest that the excessive use of force was not only a result of poor decision-making, but possibly an act of racial bias or discrimination. Furthermore, the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution states, if race was a factor in the use of excessive force or in the failure to intervene, Mr. Carroll may have grounds to argue that his equal protection rights under the 14th Amendment were violated. This could potentially lead to civil rights litigation, especially under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983.
You have a taser deployment?
Yeah, he does.
45 metro. Let's have a taser deployment, no 55.
He broke my cuff.
It's just him?
That's all I seen out. That car's. Yeah, he broke my cuff. All the guts came out of it.
He had a card on foot.
I think he's in that car. It's down there past the... Right as you start to come back out of the rest area right there. Thank you.
What's your side? Pull the shorts. You got a cartridge? You put it in the glove or something. You all right?
Roll him up. Set him up. Roll him over. Set him up.
No, he's not breathing. Start CPR. Okay.
One full metro.
I got it.
All right, go ahead.
At the end of the video, officers are seen performing CPR after Mr. Carroll stops breathing. He was later pronounced dead at the hospital. According to the autopsy report, Mr. Carroll had heart disease. In response, his family has filed a lawsuit seeking justice. The main issue is that Mr. Carroll wasn't committing any crime, wasn't accused of any crime, and was unarmed, stated Eric Dixon, the Carroll family's attorney. In a statement, the McKinley County Sheriff's Office claimed that Mr. Carroll was tased to prevent him from entering oncoming traffic on I-40. They also confirmed that an external party is conducting an internal investigation into the incident, which includes the deputy's admission that he had consumed alcohol that day. Be sure to check out our previous video, where we cover another outrageous police encounter